I'm Master Sergeant Micheal Vance from the United States Army Band Pershing Zone, and I'm offering a series of short lessons aimed at beginning saxophone players. On this short snippet, we will cover the appropriate way to open the saxophone case. Now, this may not seem like a very big deal, but this is very important. The saxophone is an expensive instrument, and it's also very delicate and fragile. And if it is opened incorrectly, a student can damage the saxophone before it has ever been played. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that when you get your saxophone case and you're ready to open it, you place it flat on the floor, flat on the ground. Do not try to hold it on your lap. Do not try to balance it on a chair. There have been very many well-meaning students who have inadvertently bumped it or knocked it over. They lost their balance and the saxophone comes flying out and smashes on the ground. This is what we want to avoid. Now, it's not always obvious at first which side of the case is the top and which is the bottom. Mine is a little more obvious. I've got some feet on the bottom, but not every saxophone will have that. Let me give you some clues for things that you can look for. The saxophone case will have the logo of the company that made the saxophone on top. So make sure that that is on top. Another kind of clue that you can look for, it's not always the case, but in my instance, it is true that the base of the saxophone is bigger than the top. And finally, the handle will be on the bottom, not on the top part. So when you're ready to open the saxophone case, it will come with either 2 or 3 latches. Mine happens to have 3. I want you to open that and then carefully open the top. And voila, there's the saxophone. Let's just quickly talk about each of these parts. First of all, when you get your saxophone, there will be some supplies here on the side. We'll talk about this later. But the saxophone is, there are basically 3 parts of the saxophone. You've got the mouthpiece, and this is the part that makes all of the sound. This is where you will attach the reed. We'll learn about a reed in a little while. This is the neck of the saxophone, and the mouthpiece will go on this end of the neck. You'll see that this tip of the neck has cork, and this is what holds the mouthpiece in place. You also have a very delicate and fragile piece of metal here. This is called the octave key. We don't want to touch or bend or accidentally bump that, and I'll show you the proper way how to hold a neck, especially when you're getting it out of the case. And finally, we get to the body of the saxophone. And I will say this, you want to be very careful to not bump any of these rods which are attached to these keys, because if one of these rods gets bent, it can affect the alignment of these keys, which will affect how the saxophone plays. Moving on, okay, I've got a reed case here. Your saxophone may not come with that, but it will come with a neck strap, a cleaning swab, cork grease. Now typically the cork grease will come in one of 2 ways. It will come in a tube that looks kind of like a tube of chapstick. It's not chapstick, of course. Or it can come in a small container like this. But this is what you apply to the cork, and we'll talk about that in another video. And finally, it comes with the reed. This is what produces the sound. Now this is a very, very delicate part of the saxophone, and we want to make sure that we care for it, make sure that it doesn't get chipped. So in our next video, we will cover how to properly assemble the saxophone.